Okay, so welcome to the Domotz webinar. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate taking the time to get to learn about the new features added to the software, as well as things that will be added down the road. Today, Patrick Hagerman, our VP of Sales and Business Development, will be hosting the webinar. Patrick has an interesting background, which I'd like to share a bit on. He has experience in the Silicon Valley in the early days working in media-focused startups. He has also experience as a home automation integrator. He built his own home automation installation company and led as a principal at one of the leading integration companies in San Francisco. He was an early adopter of Domotz technology. In fact, he purchased the very first Domotz box in 2015. And in 2016, he joined us as our head of business development and sales. And he brings a unique perspective to the picture because he's able to view the problem from both sides, which provides interesting insight into the managed service industry. With that, I'm going to pass things over to Patrick now, and he'll take you through the rest of the presentation.
Thanks, Violet. Welcome everyone to the Domotz monthly webinar. Today we're going to try to walk you through a little bit of an overview. It's been a few months since we talked about kind of who is Domotz, and thought we'd walk you through that, and then also show some new features and functions that we've launched in the last month since the last webinar. During the webinar, feel free to ask any questions that you have in the questions and answers section of the browser, and we'll compile those, and we'll have a question and answer session at the very end. But do feel free to ask those as we go, and then we'll queue them up and we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. So in terms of who is Domotz, we're for a relatively new company, we're a good size company. We've got more developers than most companies of our age, and development is a really big part of what we do here. We're about 50 full-time employees, of which 65% are developers. So we move very quickly. We launch a lot of features and functions. You'll see them coming out. If you haven't been involved with Domotz yet, you'll see a very quick cadence of new features and functions. And we adapt to changing market conditions very quickly because of the number of developers we have. We have offices in London, San Francisco, Atlanta, Pisa, and Rome. So we've got good coverage between North America and Europe. The products and services that we offer, I imagine most of you have probably heard of Fing or come across the app at some point or another. It's the #1 network scanning app for mobile devices. It's been around for almost 10 years now. It's got some incredibly impressive numbers, and it's a fantastic app. If you don't have it, go download it, and you'll see the benefits of using Fing. Fing Kit really is is basically putting Fing in a box. For the most part, it ends up our SDK and API that allows us to use some of the Fing application and services on other devices. And you'll see things happening with FingKit over time. And then Domotz Pro is what we're here to talk about today. And Domotz Pro really is the #1 network monitoring and management system for managed service providers. So we cover all segments of the managed service providing sectors, from AV integration through to security to IT, and now the blending of all that over the IoT space. We'll talk a little bit about that. I know there's some new people on the webinar here who probably haven't or aren't as familiar with Domotz Pro. So we'll talk a little bit high level on that. For those of you that are already using the product, bear with us as we go through some of the basics. And then at the end, we'll get to some of the more, the new features and functions. So some numbers, and again, as a company that's been around for 2 years, these are incredibly impressive numbers. So we've got 20 million downloads of our app between Fing and Domotz Pro. We have 7 billion and pushing close to 8 billion IoT devices cataloged in the cloud. And we've had about 670,000 user accounts created just in Q1 of 2017. So a little bit of that is, so what? What does that mean to you guys as integrators and professionals in this space? And the answer really is all about how quickly can we do our device identification? So we do the device scanning, the network scanning. How quickly can we do that device scanning and bring you back relevant information? So you've seen some scanners, when they do their scan, they typically present you with things like Apple, and Samsung, but they really get you just manufacturer information. They don't get you a whole lot of make and model, which means that you now have to go through and individually identify each of the devices that are on that network, which is incredibly time consuming, and ultimately that costs you money. What we do is we go up to the cloud and we do a variety of different, run on a variety of different algorithms and use some machine learning to bring you back as much as we can in terms of make, model, and manufacture. And all that leads to faster setup. And for us, that means money to you guys. So we see ourselves as one of the fastest and most accurate device scanning, network scanning tools on the market. So what do? Really, we're remote assistance as a service. And that means everything from scanning the network, enriching the data based on the cloud services we just talked about. That gets us our remote monitoring. So we get proactive notification if a device goes down. It obviously gets us remote power management. We also get remote network access. So it's, we always think it's very interesting to understand what's going on in the network. The awareness is incredibly important. If you're going to try to provide some kind of an RMM service, the awareness of what's going on the network is important, but equally it needs to be actionable. And if it's not actionable, it really is kind of pointless because you still have to roll the truck. So the idea that we've got remote network access, and in fact, we have more interfaces available to us than anybody else out there that we scan and find automatically on all the devices on the network. So the remote network access is the actionable piece of this. And then obviously we've got the diagnostics, we've got a customer-facing app. We'll talk a little bit more about some new features and functions on that. We integrate with a variety of home technology companies, from Crestron to Luxol, et cetera, Control4. And we've got some manufacturer support. We've got a new one that we're going to launch, or that we've just launched, that we'll talk about in a minute. And then a variety of network mapping. So we do as much as we can for you in terms of understanding what's hanging off of managed switches and PoE switches. Again, all in the interest of trying to get the setup to be quick. We really want to get you on and off of the activity of setting this device up. And our goal is to have this thing set up in less than an hour for you. Whereas, in the past, and certainly some of our competitors, it's a half day or an all day job in some cases. And then obviously alerts and reports. We'll talk about a new report function that we just launched that we think is really important and we hope you find very valuable. So why did we create Domotz? There's 6 real problems that we're solving here. Certainly in the CEDIA space, there's been a ton of conversation about RMR, recurring monthly revenue. We actually don't believe that that's the primary reason to do this. We know for the last 3 or 4 years, and certainly my involvement through this whole RMM space, everybody's talked about RMR. Our perspective is that's really, that benefits the dealer clearly, but there's still questionable how much that really benefits the end user. And our perspective is that customer service is what this is really about. So yes, RMR is important. Yes, it helps the bottom line. But at the end of the day, this really should be about providing better customer service using tools that are available now that have never existed in the past, or were so cumbersome or expensive that they just weren't practical. So the idea now that we've got these tools, that incredibly high value, relatively low price, that provides a level of customer service that is far and away better than we've ever been able to do in the past. And certainly when you look at minimizing truck rolls, it's customer service at a decreased expense. We know with these products and services that you guys are installing, it's really not if, it's when. Something will certainly go wrong. And when it does, if you don't have any information and the awareness of what's going on in the network, you're really completely in the dark about what you might need to do to solve the problem. And I know running the integration firm, if we were able to understand what was going on in that network, in that residence or in that small business, it meant we could send our tech out there with far greater confidence that we were going to be able to solve the problem. We could send them with the right equipment, the right replacement parts. And the tech actually felt much more comfortable showing up and working on that network because they had a much better sense of what was going on. So we believe that the awareness of what happens on these networks and our understanding being in a remote location of what's happened on the network and potentially figuring out if you do need to roll a truck, what's gone wrong so you can send them out there with the right equipment is really important. Again, all this really starting with customer service, but there is a cost savings component to this. If you roll less trucks, you can certainly move more money to the bottom line that way. So the cost savings, obviously RMR is not to be minimized. It's important. It's part of the business plan. And it's the incremental dollars, but ideally you're providing these services to your end user client, first as customer service, and secondly about how do you generate monthly income from it. And then lastly, it's the employee capital. If we provide the right dashboard and the right set of tools, can we get a lesser paid tech to be doing some of the work that you used to have your most highest paid, most valued techs doing at not only a true cost, but an opportunity cost? It meant that they probably weren't out in the field. They probably weren't earning you the kind of money that they should. And we found that our utilization went way up when we were able to use a tool like Domotz and get our techs, get our installers and our techs out in the field working on billable hours, get their utilization up, and allow some of the office staff to do some of that remote work that was previously done by our most expensive techs. So some of the new stuff that we've got, if you've been around Domotz at all, you'll have seen that we've launched a variety of different integrations with hardware manufacturers. You'll have seen that there's a Luxol manufacturer support that we had already live. We've now added Nuvo to that. So if we scan a network and we find that you've got some Nuvo equipment on that network, likewise, same thing with Luxol. If we find that equipment on the network, we automatically build a new tile on the main interface, and we in that tile we populate it with the information from the hardware that's found. We give you a few different things that you can do. So we'll know the device model automatically. There's a remote reboot capability through the web app and from the mobile side of things. Manufacturer support's really interesting. It currently exists with Luxol and Nuvo. Nobody else is doing anything like this outside of Domotz. And what it does is it allows you out in the field or in your office to be able to click on a button on a particular job that you're having a problem with and you'd like support from that manufacturer. So with Luxol or with Nuvo, if you're having problems with their hardware or some of their configuration, you can literally just click on a button. It sends a message automatically to their tech support. Their tech support also has Domotz installed, and they have the ability then to work with you to log into the system, to directly connect into the Luxol or the Nuvo hardware and help you do firmware upgrades or reconfigure it or reboot it or whatever you might need. So it gives you a helping hand from the manufacturer when you're out on a job and you're having problems with a piece of hardware. So you'll see over the next coming months, this will get populated more and more. There's really nothing you need to do on your end. It all happens automatically. If we find that piece of hardware on the network, it automatically builds that tile and you automatically get that customer support option. It also identifies the firmware version. So it gives you some more insight into what's going on that network and gives you the ability to update firmware and upgrade firmware where necessary. And then this just went live recently. If you've been around Domotz, you've seen that there's a reporting function that's really geared to be a report that goes to the end user, so the homeowner, the small business owner, enterprise owner. And this was something that early days when I wasn't at Domotz was a request that we made. I felt it was really important that even if we weren't in the client's house or in their business doing the work, that they knew that we were working on their behalf, and that just because everything had worked great all month didn't mean it didn't take some effort from us to do that. And again, ultimately justifying the price that we were charging on a monthly basis, as well as continuing to prove out that customer service that we showed them. So this was a request. Domotz was incredibly generous and kind to have created the report really quick for us, and we were able to put it in front of our clients almost immediately. One of the things that prior to coming to Domotz I had asked is, can we make this branded as our integration firm rather than with Domotz logos on it? And if you've been around Domotz and you've used Violet, you'll see that Violet is completely branded as your company, not ours. And it's got your contact details and all of the interface information to reach you guys. So it makes a lot of sense that this report does the same thing. And so if you go in and look at the report now and you're set up for Violet, we grab the logo that you gave us on the Violet side and we use that in the report. And so that's the next phase of this report. What you'll see over time is that in fact, the report will change to be even more customer facing. We'll have two reports. We'll have a dealer report and we'll have a customer report. And you'll see that the report will continue to evolve into something that we can put in front of the client and they can continue to feel better and better about the service that you guys are providing for them. And then the customer facing app, so Violet, you're going to see early into Q3 a new launch for Violet. That's going to be kind of Violet 2.0. If you've played around with Violet at all now, you'll know that you can see where it's headed and the benefits of it. If you haven't experienced Violet or you aren't on Domotz yet, the way Violet works, we really wanted an app that could go in front of the client that would only give them access to certain things and permissions to do certain things. We felt like it was necessary for the clients to still have some control and they still wanted information about what was going on in their network. Even though they were paying us to do it, they weren't really ready to hand everything off completely, or most clients weren't anyway. So the idea with Violet is it really becomes the app that the client can have. You as the dealer can decide what they see and what they don't see, and what they can power cycle and what they can't power cycle in terms of the devices on their network. But at the end of the day, it presents it in a way that's relevant to them and it's in context to them, not what a dealer sees. And the benefits of that are things like parental control. So we're starting to put some parental control options in there and some scheduling on parental control so that the homeowner can actually take and turn off their kids' access to the network if they want at 10 o'clock every night. They can also block devices that come on and off the network. They can certainly see speed tests and things like that. So it really is geared for the homeowner who wants some control, but you as the dealer don't want to give them absolute control to everything. And what we know for sure is that when customers start going down to the rack, they go down to the mechanical room and they start unplugging things to thinking that they're helping the situation, we all know that that usually turns out horribly wrong and they start plugging things back in the wrong places and now the PDUs don't work the way they're supposed to. So this was an idea to give them the ability to power cycle something if you chose to allow them to do that without having to actually physically go touch something. It was basically software control. So you'll see as it comes out next, a completely redone interface. It still has your branding on it. So it'll have all of your branding, your logos and your contact details and everything else. In order to use Violet, you need to be a dealer. And to be a dealer with Domotz, you have to have bought 100 credits. We're trying to keep this out of the hands of the DIY person exclusively and really make this a dealer benefit. So we feel like 100 credits, which are basically $3 each, you split those across as many different networks as you're managing. That then establishes the fact that you're a dealer and you're a company that's doing this for a living, and you then get access to Violet along with a whole bunch of other benefits that you get as a dealer. Some other new features that have come out. So the PDU ports and switch ports now are added to the device list report. So when you look at that device list, again, one of the things that we work really hard on is trying to do as much self-identification and setup ahead of time so that you don't have to do it. So as we start looking through different PDUs and manage switches and understanding what's hanging off of each of those outlets or ports, we document that for you and we map that into the network automatically. And so now we've taken that one step further and we add it to the report. So as you start to print out this report, you can get a high-level perspective of all of your devices on the network, and you can start to see the at least text versions of what the network mapping looks like. Sorting the agents, what we're finding is we're getting really good take-up from the dealer base on getting Domotz out there in the world. And so we're getting dealers now that have 50, 75, 100, a few people even 200, 300 networks. And so we need to continue to work on how we present those networks. So there's different options now for how you sort those, the networks in your dashboard so that you can get to them quicker. And this way, again, trying to minimize the amount of time it takes to manage these networks. We want to give you the option as the dealer to be able to look at these networks in a variety of different ways so that you can become more efficient at managing them. And then from a remote connection standpoint, we now have it set so you can upload files that are 10 megabytes instead of 1 megabyte. And that's really around doing firmware updates and sending configuration files and things like that. We previously had a restriction of 1 megabyte and found that there were some dealers that needed to upload larger files than that. So we've increased that to 10 megabytes. We believe that should cover all the configuration files and firmware updates that exist. And hopefully that solves a handful of people's problem in terms of file size. Automation system integration. So one of the other things that we do, and we do particularly well, is the way we integrate with these different manufacturers. So we talked about Luxol, we talked about Nuvo. We've got the same thing either live now or in the process of becoming live with a handful of other hardware manufacturers. Of course, we're device agnostic and manufacturer agnostic, so we really don't care whose equipment is out there on the network. We scan it all. We understand make, model, and manufacturer of far, far more devices than anybody else does because we're manufacturer agnostic. And we can return back to you a wealth of information regardless of what manufacturer it is. These just happen to be some manufacturers that we have even deeper integration with, whether it be things like Luxol and Nuvo that have the manufacturer support tile where you get a direct line into their tech support team. Or in some cases, we can do some remote diagnostics. We can present you with, again, more information and more awareness of what's going on in the network. So you'll continue to see this list of manufacturers grow. There's several new announcements coming up pre-CEDIA that you'll see, and you'll see the logos here continue to populate more and more as we go on over the next few months. So what's coming up next at Domotz? A handful of things in terms of features and functions. You'll see the Violet 2.0. That's really our big push right now, along with several other features and functions as it relates to some managed switches and PoE devices and things like that. We're going to be at Infocom, so if anybody's around in the early parts of June, we'll be in Infocom. And then obviously CEDIA Expo is coming up very soon, so we'll be there as well. And we'd love to have you come and visit us there. And that's really it for the new features and functions and some of the quick overview. I'd like to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. Certainly, if you guys have any technical questions, our support team is phenomenal. The fact that we have people in Europe and here means we're pretty much 24/7 around the clock. And the support team does a fantastic job of getting back and resolving any problems you might have. You can always send an email to support@domotz.com. And then if you'd like to get started using Domotz and you aren't already, or if you've started but you have questions and aren't really sure where to go from there, you can always visit our website at www.domotz.com, or you can send an email to dealers@domotz.com. And we'll jump right on it and either give you a demo if you'd like to see some more details of how the system works, or if you've got questions or anything else we can help with. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. But again, thank you. We'll open it up to questions and answers now. I see we've got at least a couple of questions here. I'll dive into this one. And we've got a handful of people from our team on the line. And so we've got some tech support people and some of the engineers on the line. So if we get to really technical questions, I may hand off to one of the engineers, but I'll do my best to see if I can answer them as well. So let's see, we've got a question here. Will multiple sites be available within Violet for a customer who has multiple homes? What's ETA on guest offline, online, and family offline, online notifications within the Alerts Manager? So I don't know I'm not sure if Giancarlo is still on the line. That multiple sites, so what they're asking is, and we certainly ran into this, clients that have multiple houses, primary residence, secondary residence, Violet out of the box, the original version really didn't work particularly well on multiple locations. That is certainly on the roadmap. Whether it comes out in this first version, sort of the Violet 2.0 that's coming out soon. Tommaso, or if Giancarlo's there, do you guys know if that's in the first round of the roadmap?
Yeah, I confirm, Patrick, it's on the roadmap. The support for multiple sites for the same customer. Yep.
Okay, and so that will be, when we launch Violet 2.0, that'll be part of that?
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. And then the second part of that question, what's the ETA on the guest offline, online, and family offline, online notification within the Alerts Manager? Yes, offline, online. So I'm not sure I understand the question, unfortunately. Tommaso or Giancarlo?
Yes, because in Violet we have a section alert with a couple of alert, the guest and family coming soon. And that's something that we are refactoring for the V2 so that we do not talk anymore about devices, but we talk about people. And on the people, you can set up alerts. So you can assign devices to user, person, to people, and you can alert on the status of the people. So we are a bit refactoring that part so that the alert is not associated anymore to the device, but to the person.
Excellent. Sam, hopefully that answered your question. If that wasn't what you were asking in the second part there, if you want to retype it in, we'll take another shot at it. But it sounds like that's what you were asking. And Travis, I guess it says Sam stole your question. So hopefully the answer was what you're looking for in terms of the multiple sites. So yeah, I think we're all looking for that multiple sites thing because we know that it's such a valuable tool to be able to provide to the end user. And yet if they can't use it for both their houses, they feel like they're missing out on something. We've got another question that says, with network switches, will there be an option to individually reset ports? So I assume you're talking about a PoE switch to be able to reset the port, Bobby. Hopefully that's the question you're asking. And again, Giancarlo, I believe we can already reset ports on a PoE switch, or if not, I think it's Giancarlo. What do you know about that?
Yeah, the single port, single port, yeah, it's already, actually it's not a reset, but it's an on-off command to the PoE switch. That's because the PoE switches, they do not support natively the reset of each single port. So it will be an on-off command, or better, an off after and then the on command.
And that's live now, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I'm not sure the question was really about whether you can reset it or whether you can just turn on and off an individual port. But yeah, the ability to turn it on and off, effectively resetting it, currently exists on individual ports for PoE switches. So Bobby, hopefully that answered your question. Let's see, Crestron, will it see network attached directly to the Crestron processor, dedicated switch for just Crestron IP devices? Tommaso or Giancarlo, would you guys mind taking that one?
Yes. So basically, I mean, no matter which device a switch is attached, if the device is IP based, we can monitor it already. The only exception if the device is not between a router or a firewall. So the answer is we have already the capability to detect IP devices in the Crestron network. And the only exception is if the device is not by the switch or the Crestron network equipment.
Okay, thanks, Tommaso. And then there's another question. Used to work in enterprise as a user and reseller. Could I operate Domotz as a one-man, as a sole trader? So yeah, the answer is yes. I think if I understand your question correctly, you're still selling these services and providing these services on a network basis. So yeah, therefore you can still, you can sign up for Domotz and install the agent yourself, or you can buy a box from us, whatever works best for you. And then Travis asks, thanks for customizing the reports. Any future intent to customize the email that is sent as well? I don't mind mentioning Domotz in the email, but just showing that the email came from our company would be great. So right now, the way that works is it's a PDF. So you go in and initiate it, presumably at the end of the month. It creates a PDF and will send to whatever email addresses you've got in the system there. So right now it's manually initiated. The idea is that on the roadmap, at least what we've talked about is to have it automatically generated at the end of each month. But we feel like there needs to be a review cycle before it just automatically gets sent to the client. So we're working on what the best interface is for that. The fear, we've talked to a lot of dealers about this, and I was a big proponent of a checkbox that said, you know, please send automatically every month to my clients. And then and that was when I was running the integration firm. A few dealers said, you know, I don't feel really comfortable with that, because if my techs type something in that they don't realize is going to get in front of the client, some perhaps derogatory comments or things that should be confidential and left within the four walls of the dealer, but they wanted an ability to review it. So for right now, the middle ground to that is that you go in and initiate it. It has the dealer logo on it. You can have it sent to you, and then you can send it on to your clients. So it's a couple of step process currently, but for the most part, it gives that review cycle. We're working on whether we can expedite that and figure out a more efficient way of doing it, perhaps showing you a screen version and allowing you to approve it and then hit send. But the answer is, yeah, we're going to keep working on that report. It's it turns out to be a really valuable thing to get in front of the client. So if you've got ideas on things you'd like to see, please don't hesitate to submit those to us. And we'll certainly, can't promise that we'll integrate everything and all the suggestions and requests, but we'd love to hear feedback from the field and understand what we can do best to make your guys' job on that customer service and expense reduction side even more powerful. Let's see, Gabe asks, how soon might we see products such as Luxol have Domotz capabilities built into the hardware itself? So the end of May, early June, their Luxol 5000 series routers will actually have Domotz built inside it. Our agent will be running in that 5000 series. The 4000 series, I believe, is end of June, maybe early July. And then the 3100, which I think is getting relabeled to a 3150 perhaps, that comes out sometime in the fall. So over the next 3 months or so, you'll see product line by product line within the Luxol stable coming out with Domotz built inside of it. And you'll also see some other, our agents running in some other hardware as well. Let's see, I think, okay, Gabe asked a question over in the Domotz. So I think that's, I see Tommaso answering Bobby's question. It looks like we've answered all the questions. If anybody else has any, we'll hang for another couple seconds. And if anybody has any other questions and answers, we're happy to answer questions. We're happy to answer them. And again, if you don't get an opportunity now to ask the question, don't hesitate to send an email either to support@domotz.com or dealers@domotz.com. Let's see, Travis asked another question. Regarding the emailed reports, that makes more sense. I was misinterpreting the intent. Per your question, if you could have a checkbox per customer per site that emailed to us the reports each month automatically to at least alleviate the first step of the process, that'd be a great start. Yeah, that's the idea. Try to make it as easy as you guys as we can, but also give you some kind of a review process in case, so you don't inadvertently send things out to your clients that you don't need to. All right, I believe that's all the questions, and I think we've answered all of them. Oh, here's another one from Chris. How do you currently send a firmware update to a piece of equipment being monitored by Domotz? So if you aren't familiar with how Domotz works, and I'll try to answer your question succinctly here, but you click on the device itself, and then there's a connect button. That connect button builds a temporary tunnel, a secure tunnel between the box sitting on the network and our cloud service, which now gives you full access to everything in that device. So assuming the device has some kind of an interface, whether it's Telnet or SSH or port 80, HTTP or HTTPS or RDP. So a whole bunch of different interfaces that are available. We scan and find those automatically. Once let's say you've got a AVR, receiver that you want to update the firmware on. Those typically have a web browser. You click on connect. It opens up the web browser interface remotely. And then all you have to do is whatever the process is on that device to update its firmware, typically it's upload a file. So you click on its file upload function. It will present you with a dialog box that will allow you to look onto your hard drive on your local machine, choose the firmware file that you want to upload. We'll upload it straight to that device, and then it will swap it out and go through its firmware update process. hopefully that answers the question the way you were asking it, Chris.
Please, Patrick, remember the limitation that we have of 10 megabyte file maximum.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Fortunately now up to 10 from 1. So hopefully that solves some of those problems on firmware updates. All right, well, it looks like we've answered all the questions that have been presented. Again, thank you all for attending. Appreciate it. And if we can be of any help, don't hesitate to send us an email or reach out to us through one of our different online forums. And we look forward to having you as a Domotz client. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.